Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Tim, again. That was actually interesting, because it was really interesting to see. As Paul pointed out, it was just the high utilization of this electrical equipment in the Chinese market was really surprising to me. Anthony, we've talked about batteries.
Yeah.
You're probably chomping at the bit there for Darren's question. I don't know if you've got a comment from that line of questioning there.
Yeah. To be frank, like whatever things I wanted to tell the group, Tim has already told how the electric technology is being accepted across the world. So the data, which I didn't have, I just got from Tim's presentation. So thank you, Tim, for that. Anyway, so I'm not going to that specific because he has very perfectly or clearly said that the market is shifting to this electric side. The thing which probably I'm trying to emphasize more is the power source. As Tim said, Sinabom is planning to go ahead right now with AGM batteries and lithium as an option. We, on the other hand, on our side, we focus on the lithium-ion batteries for the complete product range. That's the thing. So let me come back to the question, like why lithium? Why not a lead-acid battery, which is much cheaper compared to lithium battery? The reason is there are few technical aspects to it. Like if you ask questions if you are not very clear about, I'm not very clear about what I'm saying, or I'm not very clear in conveying what I wanted to convey. So please ask questions if you want to know further. If you charge a battery, a typical lead-acid battery, the stored charge, you cannot take it out completely. So you may end up using half of what is stored inside. So even if you say a battery has got, let's say, in a layman's language, a capacity of 10, you end up using only 5 or maximum 6.
Yeah.
On a lithium-ion battery, you end up using maybe 9 or even 9.5. Number two, if you use a conventional lead-acid battery, your power rating or the voltage output drops as the power goes out. And lithium batteries give you kind of a steady power output throughout the range. So these are some practical, differences what we see on using lithium.
And could this bridge the gap we were talking about there in terms of between the movement from diesel into electrical, particularly in sort of rough terrain kind of conditions? Is this sort of,
Perfect.
Will we see a bit more progress in that area, do you think?
Yeah, this is just it's just a concept. Like people think or tend to think that unless your machine makes heavy noise, it's not strong enough. Like when you say an electric machine, they are much more torqueier and powerful than a comparable diesel machine in in the present technologies.
So if I can pick up on that,
yeah.
I mean, anybody who's driven an electric car knows the acceleration is phenomenal because exactly what you said. The discussion about what kind of battery to use, I would say the jury is still out. We supply lithium in China. We've had good experience with it there where people are familiar with it. Our experience of the AGM batteries we're using in Europe has been nobody ever talks about them, which is great. And to come back to your question and the point you were making, the power is there. As you saw with the picture of the machine in the cow stall, the power is there, and it's a question about how often can you charge it, how often do you need to charge it, have you got the power supply on site, and then which kind of battery is most appropriate for your project.
But is there talk about differentials, but is there a big cost difference currently between, for RT applications specifically in terms of an electric RT machine versus one that's actually a traditional diesel powered? I mean, principally that's going to be the main factor, isn't it, in terms of people's
I can answer that because if I speak about my product range, I don't know about the other brands. I think they all must be in the same way of pricing. Our machine, the lithium-ion machines are slightly, let's say, 5 to 7% more expensive than an equivalent, same-sized diesel machine. But when you look at the maintenance cost, your total cost of ownership, if you calculate over a period of, let's say, 5-6 years, it is much lesser compared to a diesel machine. And when you use an electric machine, The other thing is your maintenance requirements are low, your breakdowns are less, because most of the electric machine use electric drive. So the most complicated hydraulic system always goes below the turntable. So all these things are avoided.
I mentioned about the rental company owner I was talking to in the UK who said he didn't want to buy diesel, but he has to still. And one thing he said to me, he said on a diesel machine there are 20 touch points, 20 points that need to be checked regularly. You don't have those on an electric machine.
True.
How many do you have on an electric machine? 3?
About 4.
Four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For an average
Yeah.
user, there's only one touch point, your charging plug. That's right. Exactly. That's what it ends up.
Yeah.
Okay, we say people do maintenance according to the maintenance manuals. Okay, these are stories, but
What sort of charging? Well, how long do these machines, once they're fully charged? Because obviously sometimes with cars it's really easy. We talked about car ownership earlier, but can you get a full day's work out of one
Yes.
charge?
yes.
They're designed
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely designed with
Yeah.
that in mind. Of course, in our industry, what is a full day's work? Because, when,
Yeah.
as I said, when it's up, it's off. So generally speaking, we say you can get 2 days
Yeah.
on a full charge. Depends on the work you're doing.
I'll give you some data.
Yeah.
A 28-meter boom, which is 28-meter platform, a tall boom,
Yeah.
typically employs, I'm taking almost all brands, uses a 60 kilowatt engine
Yeah.
to run that normally. And that engine, I think what Robo was saying, the
Yeah.
hour meter on the Middle East machines are quite high because he's up there welding all the day and the engine is running all the time. He's not using an engine-driven generator.
Yeah,
Still,
sure.
it is happening. So on an electric machine, the moment he leaves the joystick, the power consumption stopped. So a 28-meter boom typically employs or uses a 40 kilowatt battery, lithium-ion
Yeah.
battery, and once fully charged, it can comfortably support you 2 to 3 days, depending on you keep driving it all the day. Of course, the battery will drain, but
Yeah.
on a normal work application, 2 to 3 days is quite easy. And to charge a 40 kilowatt battery using a normal 7 kilowatt charger, like your normal wall charger, it takes hardly 5 to 6 hours. Like you get a 7 kilowatt charger.
I mean, it's a massive difference between what a car battery is. I don't know off the top of my head, but 40 kilowatts is nothing compared to an electric car
Yeah.
battery. So, but I mean, I suppose there still are challenges. We talked earlier, actually, during the facilities management one, about in terms of building buildings with charging in mind and actual electrical equipment in mind. I mean, I guess this is still a potential problem for electric equipment in the market, not actually having enough, even if they can last 2 or 3 days,
the
actually having
charging?
enough charging infrastructure in place.
Charging electric machines are still in use in the market. As Tim has said, in Europe we have more electric machines than the engine-driven traditional machines. So how do those machines get charged? Same way, just because we use lithium doesn't change anything. We need electric power, and with lithium battery, the advantage is you can have DC chargers, like the fast chargers
Yeah.
on Teslas. We can have a, let's say, 80 or 100 kilowatt battery charger. It just charges in like 30, 40 minutes.
How are you?
Battery's back to full charge.
Good, good.
That's possible. But using a normal wall charge, it takes like 40 divided by 7.
So,
That's
yes,
easy math.
second last
So
now. So this one will go on for about another
we can
10
hear
minutes,
somebody at the
and then
back
we've got
talking.
The last one of the day. Then it'll be
On the
the
microphone.
question.
It's Rob.
Is it
So
a
I think
question?
probably aim to finish just after 2.
So just to pick up on what
That
you're
was
saying.
Paul. It's Paul. Somebody tell Paul to. He's still present. He's that professional. He's presenting from outside. Hopefully, it's that. It's not a Naked Gunner moment. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that movie.
Yeah. just to pick up on what
Yeah.
you're saying. In the end, it's just about getting used to it, and
Yeah, and get it into your routines, isn't
precisely.
it? Yeah.
And it's now become the norm in
Yeah.
many countries that at the start of the construction site, okay, how are we going to provide the electric power?
Yeah.
And it might be a temporary diesel generator,
Yeah.
because it's still cheaper and more environmentally friendly to have a low-power diesel generator,
Yeah.
which is just charging the equipment, than it is to have 100 diesel machines.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked actually in this market about off-the-grid charging and things like that, but it is a massive problem actually to have that in there, and actually having something. Ultimately, there's that whole discussion about where does the power generation come from anyway. So actually, a low-powered diesel generator on site, as counterintuitive as it seems, actually can be a good option.
Yes.
And in terms of the dealer and rental channel here, from a manufacturer's point of view, is that how useful are they in terms of actually educating the market, the wider market itself, in terms of actually use of these machines? Because obviously we've got quite a lot of guys from the rental channel here. We'll be talking that soon. It seems obvious to me that they're the ones that actually often have like the first face-to-face contact with the market.
It's vital.
Yeah.
It's crucial. And
Yeah.
part of what I was trying to do today is to give you guys the confidence to believe that
Yeah.
electric-powered MEWPs can deliver and can do the work. Because if you're thinking, well, I'm not sure if it can really deliver on rough terrain,
Yeah.
you're not going to recommend it. So I hope I've helped to put that confidence.
Even in the high ambient temperatures that we have in the Middle East, is there any limitation there?
The Teslas are running in this weather.
Yeah.
In this, let's say our Junes and
Yeah.
Julys and August, they are still
Yeah.
running, consuming the full power for a long time.
Yeah.
So you are like draining the battery,
Yeah.
because the problem with battery happens once you charge and once
Yeah.
you discharge. So once you charge with a big supercharger,
Yeah.
high ampere goes in.
Yeah.
That's a potential problem. There can be potential issue while charging and high ampere discharging. Both these things are happening in this weather, and these batteries have survived at least 3-4 summers in this region. So, and this machine, the power consumption, as I said, is very minimal compared to a Tesla running at, let's say, 100 km/h speed. The power consumption is very less.
So if it's such a no-brainer, why aren't we at 100% utilization? What's the...
It just takes time, I think.
It takes
It's a
time.
mentality. That's the biggest
Yeah.
challenge for electric machines or lithium machines. The biggest challenge in every region is the customer acceptance.
Yeah.
Once you have 10 machines with him, then once he knows how it is being, so user-friendly, then it will follow.
And honestly, the electric-powered machines now are much better than they were 6 or 7 years
Yeah.
ago.
Do you
So
think
the
some people
technology-
still maybe have been early adopters and then have had their fingers burnt a little bit and that's made them
I
reluctant? Or
haven't
do you
really
think...
seen that, but what I do see sometimes is people become passionate about
Yeah.
it in rental companies.
Yeah.
And they really want people to use the electric-powered equipment.
Yeah.
They buy into the whole idea of sustainability and going green.
I mean, we'll open up to questions now. I don't know, we had the conversation about electric car ownership. I don't know if there's anybody out here who would consider themselves an advocate for electric equipment, wants to... Oh, there's one. Are you mic'd up yet, Rob? Could you pass the mic over there?
Testing. Yeah, I was just wanted to say that, I'm certainly an advocate. I was just sort of answering that question. It brings many more advantages and disadvantages. I think the comparison between the automobile industry and MUPS is not really fair for many reasons, but I think, one of the things that Anthony said about the heat, it's true, but vehicles travel at much higher speeds and they can cool their power sources and their batteries easier than a MUP can, but the manufacturers also can change the compounds of lithium quite easily to suit a higher ambient temperature or a lower ambient temperature, and they can change parameters to make it less volatile and so on and so forth. And then what's the next thing after lithium? We have more options coming soon, so we shouldn't get stuck on lithium. And I think Tim's saying, AGM is a huge advantage for rental companies and customers as well. Lithium's there, and what's next? Round the corner, something's coming.
Okay.
Maybe supercapacitors? It can come up. So,
What's that?
Supercapacitor.
Oh, yes, correct.
That's a thing which people started exploring it.
Could you just explain a little bit more what supercapacitors are?
Okay. I'm not an expert, but it's like, capacitor. The normal capacitors, what we use in all electric, like if you take an old fan or motors, we have this capacitor. Capacitor is just, in a very basic form, it is two surfaces or two metal sheets which are like charged. So that charge can store charge and discharge current. So capacitor, the current problem is you cannot control the discharge thing. Like if you charge a capacitor, you just short it, just bursts. It just gives a big spark. And so the thing is, if you find a way to regulate the output, then this is one of the cheapest options to store energy.
Yeah.
YouTube has got a lot of videos how they use it. Supercapacitor is not a new thing. It's there for quite some time, but it's not been adopted to this industry yet. But as Rob said, technology will change. So maybe this will come up later. Charging time is faster, so you never know. Things will happen.
Any more questions? Jason at the front.
No?
It's coming. Don't worry. Yeah.
Hi, great session. I just want to ask, obviously a lot of the focus on electrification is coming from the sustainability standpoint, protecting the environment and all that. When we talk about lithium, the actual mining process can be quite damaging. There's two ways of getting lithium. Basically, I think in Australia it's from mining, whereas from Chile and places like that it's from farming. Both processes have got been criticized in recent times about how much damage it can do to the environment. As manufacturers, do you guys, put kind of when you're working with you're sourcing the lithium, for example, do you guys have recommendations or requirements that these mines have to kind of follow so that you're extracting the material sustainably instead of damaging the environment?
Yeah, some supply chain.
Yeah, it's a very vast topic to discuss.
Yeah, because there's a can of worms there in some ways in terms of actually you obviously looking at your own supply chains, but obviously having to balance out what the advantages are of one technology versus the source. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's something that's a factor for you.
If you look at this environmental impact on lithium mining, so do you think the minerals or material required for making a diesel engine that can be just scooped from the ground? No, they all come through different mining things. So because we know about iron ore mining or copper mining, it is there for quite some time. So we probably forget about thinking them. So they are also making impact on environment, right?
Well, this is the issue that's been for the car industry, has been essentially is all the special materials, special elements that are required. Not even just not in batteries, but all the other stuff, the way that modern vehicles are made, is actually so difficult to actually produce these things without having to do that
to pick up on that. As we mentioned, Sinoboom is quite a young company, 15 years old, but we are in the process of submitting ourselves to something called an EcoVadis audit.
Yeah.
And EcoVadis is a corporate social responsibility audit, and as part of that, we have to supply policies on how we source all this kind of equipment, what our strategy is. As I mentioned, we are being a little bit cautious with the adoption of lithium. There are a lot of open questions, and we talked about the recycling and what will happen in the future.
But this is still new, relatively new.
It's very new technology, and there aren't even European or international standards on the production of batteries today. The manufacturers are self-certifying in effect, but this will come, I'm sure. I know that IPAF, for example, is working on some standards for batteries.
And recycling, when we speak about recycling, even your normal batteries need to be recycled, right?
Yeah.
A lead-acid battery typically gives you 2 to maximum 3 years life.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, a lithium battery runs for typically 8 to 9. So you end up replacing 3 set of batteries.
If we're talking about a machine that's got the last 8 years,
so
10 years.
we can find questions or we can find the problems in these things. So but it's about seeing the positives, like how can we make use of it.
I mean, hopefully it's a lot easier than an Apple phone. They're a nightmare to replace their batteries. Do we have any more questions? That gentleman there.
So I'm Dawi from Cinnabon, as my colleague Tim introduced. The question is for Anthony. I fully agree that electrification definitely is the technology trend of this industry. So in terms of green power, environmental, economic ownership, and also serviceability. This is what's happening in Europe, what's happening in China. So definitely it will be what's happening in this region. But the question is, for the moment, what's the key barrier for the local region to shift from existing diesel power to electric power?
Great question.
Yeah, there are two things. One is, as I already said, the mindset, the acceptance part. Number two, charging. UAE has got a fairly good electricity network availability everywhere. So if you go to let's say a construction site where they're going to build a warehouse, definitely there will be electricity available. That's one part. And let's assume that we are talking about a country or a place which is quite far and there is no grid power available. I'm not saying, and I don't expect, all machines in UAE or in Middle East will become electric overnight. So remember the question which that gentleman asked during the first session, like what will happen to these machines which are like when we have diesel machines. So use them somewhere else. So if you have a site which has got no access to electricity at all, you still have diesel machines to work there. And on the other hand, I know a company in Dubai which is dealing with electric big power banks, like you all are familiar with Kafu, that car with the diesel thing. There is a electric Kafu going to come soon here, like a big lithium battery pack, which can be charged, because okay, this is something which I wanted to touch base also. Just imagine all the Teslas, like 10 Teslas charging at the same time. If they're using DC fast chargers, I'm talking about 200 kilowatt capacity. So if 10 of them start using at the same time, so 2,000 kilowatts, like it's not 2,000. It's much bigger.
Yeah.
So that can probably affect the grid in peak times. So these guys, what they're saying, in the night, you can charge all these kind of big power banks and use it as a charging station, which is not connected with the grid to supply power to the charging to the vehicle. So there are options. So if you explore, there are options to overcome the problems what we see. There are problems.
It does require investment as well. It does.
Yes, everything needs
a new strategy, a new way of thinking, but obviously investment. But
investments, of course, without investment, does anything happen?
So, no, it's true.
So when you moved from people climbing scaffolding to an access equipment, that was expensive.
Yeah.
But it brought in safety, speed, convenience. So if you invest, then you get all these benefits.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So from personal experience, I can say what happens if you purchase the wrong combustion system. You remember the Volkswagen scandal with the diesels?
Yes.
Yeah? So 1 month before that scandal, I bought my first ever diesel car. And
good timing.
Overnight, I lost 25% of the value.
Wow.
And that's what happens if you get the investment decision wrong.
Yeah. Fantastic. Any more question? Oh, guys, terrific conversation. Thank you so much.
That's a good ending.
Round of applause for our panel, please, everybody. Thank you. Some quite technical questions there as well, so brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen.